My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to This Is Metal. And along for a ride, as always, is Joe Lawson. That's why we call it This Is Metal with Joe Lawson, the man behind the show. Welcome to the show this week, Joe. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to another episode here tonight.
Yeah, and this is, if you can believe it, Joe, this is going to be episode 20. That's quite a accomplishment. Come quite far, and I think you would agree with me that we're getting better and better each issue we do. And I had a great idea to do. The band we're going to be covering tonight is Velvet Revolver, and Joe was sharing with me he's not a huge Velvet Revolver fan, but we're going to get right into it. And obviously, there's that Guns N' Roses connection, and I know you're a little more of a Guns N' Roses fan. So before we start talking about Velvet Revolver, why don't you talk about how you first became a Guns N' Roses fan?
Well, like a lot of people, I think when 1987 rolled around and they came out with Appetite for Destruction.
Oh yeah.
That was all the world's introduction, pretty much, to Guns N' Roses for the most part, aside from the people that lived out in L.A. and seen them on the club circuits and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So that was my introduction to them, and I was really impressed and really thought that they were a great rock band. Wore that record out, of course, like a lot of youngsters did.
Yeah.
But and then I even liked the stuff that they did later, with Lies, 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 and Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, and all of that stuff. I was a fan, Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is, like you, Joe, that's probably the album that like a lot of people, Appetite for Destruction obviously was my introduction to Guns N' Roses, and I remember at the time, you got to remember that's very first thing, the band's first full-length album. So that's the very first thing most people got when Guns N' Roses first came on the scene in 1987. And I mean, even to this day, like it's almost 30 years after the fact, a little more now, and that album still sells. It's still the album people point to when they think of Guns N' Roses. I mean, and it's very interesting because obviously Velvet Revolver, we're talking about today, it has three former members of Guns N' Roses, and so it's kind of born on the ashes of Guns N' Roses, this band, because very much like Velvet Revolver, which has a very interesting story, because the band, as quick as I'm talking about Velvet Revolver now, as quick as that band came together, I mean, within just a couple of years, it imploded, and we're going to get all of that tonight. And it's kind of a great band, had a tragic kind of a rock and roll tale. It's one of those things that I think Velvet Revolver kind of gets forgotten about sometimes, but like I said, they were formed on the ashes of Guns N' Roses. You got Slash, and you got Duff McKagan, and you got Matt Sorum, the drummer from Guns N' Roses, and they decide they're going to get together. And actually what got these guys back together was Randy Castillo, who had just died, the drummer from Ozzy Osbourne and Motley Crue. He died of cancer, and I guess Matt Sorum was good friends with him, and so Matt, Slash, and Duff decided they're going to put a band together to perform at this benefit for Randy Castillo after he died, to kind of raise money for cancer funds. And that's where Velvet Revolver kind of got its start.
Cool.
And the interesting thing, which I wasn't aware of until I started doing a little more research, before Scott Weiland was ever in the band, at this time at the Randy Castillo Memorial, they were just going by the name of The Project. And initially, that night of the performance, they had also Josh Todd and Keith Nelson from Buck Cherry. Now, can you imagine what Velvet Revolver would have sounded if that was the lineup they'd gone to? I mean, it would have been quite a different band, but just think about that for a minute, Joe.
Yeah, that'd have been something, huh?
Yeah, and so from that Randy Castillo benefit concert they played at, they tried to get this band going, and it didn't really say why, but eventually they decided, okay, it wasn't working with Josh and Keith, so they left and went back to Buck Cherry, and they got Izzy Stradlin, the other guitar player from Guns N' Roses, and he then suggested maybe me and Duff will just we can be the two lead singers in the band, and the rest of the guys, I mean, Duff and Izzy, they're pretty decent singers, but I guess the rest of the band, they want more of a guy that really was a lead singer. And And so after about 2 weeks, Izzy was gone at that point. And I guess the next point was they said, okay, we're going to go on a search for a lead singer, and you're not going to believe some of the people that actually auditioned for this band. Mike Patton from Faith No More, Todd Kearns, who's now the bass player in Slash's band, Miles Kennedy, who's the lead singer in Slash's band now, and also Sebastian Bach, I was reading, tried out for Velvet Revolver.
Yeah, crazy, huh? Small world.
Kind of a who's who. And they eventually found Scott Weiland because there was this thing that they put together like a reality show, Matt and Slash and Duff, and then Duff brought in a buddy that he's known since junior high, who was the other guitar player in Velvet Revolver, Dave Kirshner. Of course, only thing he did previously was I believe he played in Duff's band Loaded, and so he was kind of new to the scene. He was probably the one guy in the band that was probably the least known, and so at this point they just need a lead singer. But I was watching this VH1 show they put together. It's called The Rise of Velvet Revolver. If anybody hasn't seen it, they should go on YouTube and check it out. And it's kind of interesting because you're watching this, and from the very, very beginning, when they finally, Scott Weiland walks into the room and he auditions, you can see his drug struggling. Where there are days where he just does not show up for rehearsal. He doesn't call the rest of the guys and say he's not showing, or they call, hey, where are you, man? Where are you? And it's all, and he said, oh, I'm on my way, and he never shows up. And it's funny because from the very beginning, you could see this guy struggle with the addiction, and it's not a surprise to see the way the band imploded,
to be honest with you, man, to me, my least favorite part of Velvet Revolver would be the singer. I mean, because it's like sandpaper to a sensitive part of your body to me when I hear him sing. I don't like the guy's voice whatsoever. I was never a fan of all of that grunge era. Low, I'm high on.
You were never really a big fan of was his vocals.
Yeah. That whole grunge era, I just never got into all those guys all jacked up on heroin, singing like this. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
We come from an era of the 70s and the 80s where singers were just blowing people's minds. I mean, they were creative, they were unique, they had power, they had range, they had control, they were talented. There was real talent there. And then we go into this era that these guys get up there, their hair's all messed up, they got a flannel shirt on and pants hanging halfway off their ass, and they sound like they just ate a jar of peanut butter before they got a thing. I mean, come on, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
But there again, no, I'm not pulling any punches, man. I'm just being real.
Well, that's what this is about.
And Velvet Revolver, the band, was outstandingly talented. Are you kidding me? Slash and Duff and Matt Sorum, those guys are probably some of the best heavy hitters in rock and roll.
Oh, yeah. And
just going off a sidetrack for a minute with Slash, I was actually a huge fan of Slash's solo band, Slash's Snake Pit. That guy that he had, Eric Dover, I don't know if you ever heard of the It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere.
Oh, yeah, Yeah.
That guy had soul for days, man. He reminded me of what's the 30 Days in the whole Humble Pie.
Oh, Humble Pie, yeah. Steve Marriott.
He just had soul for days, and he was a great singer, bluesy, raspy, and I mean, he was great. Mike Inez on bass from Alice in Chains, and Slash and Gilby Clark and Matt Sorum. I mean, what a killer band. That looked promising, I thought, when Slash put that together.
And Eric Dover, as far as Snake Pit, he was kind of the secret ingredient, and he wasn't huge before Snake Pit, but he had a little success with his band Jellyfish, and I know for a few years after he left Snake Pit that he went on to play guitar for Alice Cooper's band. I'm not sure what he's doing these days, but yeah, that was a killer band.
That's pretty cool, man. I can't imagine with a voice like that, him going to play guitar for somebody. But I guess if you're going to go play guitar for somebody, Alice Cooper's probably a pretty good job.
Well, as great as it would be playing with Slash, it is called Slash's Snake Pit, and I only say that because after the first record, Snake Pit kind of folded, and then it was a few years later they did a second album and they got a second singer. And when you're without a gig for a while, if that's the only gig you can get is playing for guitar in Alice Cooper's band, I mean, I guess it pays the bills,
Yeah, not too shabby.
Yeah, and it's probably even as a sideman might pay a little more because again, as great as it is being in Slash's Snake Pit, that's also somebody else's band, but it's kind of like I think I talked to you about this before. The guy that replaced Richie Sambora and Bon Jovi. I mean, he's probably just a hired gun, but that's got to be one of the best sideman gigs you could get.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is, the business world kind of, has so much control. At least back in the era that we're talking about, still, I mean, there were still a lot of things that nobody will probably ever know, and some things maybe they don't know till later.
Yeah.
They have a direct effect on what these guys do and what they don't do. Because people think, oh, they're rock stars, they can do whatever they want. No, it's not like that. They're trying to do this for a business. They're doing this for a living, so they have to make decisions that actually work with the business people that they work with.
Oh yeah.
Or it doesn't happen. I think sometimes people don't realize how much that affects what these musicians and what these bands do and don't do.
Well, even a band
out there, guess what? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, even a band like Warrant, who was big in the 80s and they had all those huge hit records. A lot of those guys, Warrant is their side gig. They got day jobs now. And the main reason they're even able to go out and do what they do is because the original lead singer, sadly, who's no longer with us, Janie Lane, he wrote all those big hits. And, Janie's family allows, he was the primary songwriter in all those songs, and I guess the family kind of allows them to go out and the people that own the rights to the songs allow them to kind of still do those tunes, because when you go to a Warrant show, as great as a singer's Robert Mason is, you want to hear all those great Janie Lane songs, Yeah,
I mean, that was a different era, and that's what catapulted the band to success, and a lot of times sometimes that casts such a big shadow that no matter how hard you try, you never really outgrow that, and that's what people expect. A lot of those 80s bands like Skid Row and Warrant and some of those bands, I mean, if they didn't get up there and play the hits, they wouldn't be able, they probably wouldn't be able to have much of a career. I mean, it's those hits that keep them relevant. It's those hits that built a foundation for them to even try and continue on.
Oh yeah, and then and like I was saying, so Joe, getting back to Velvet Revolver, okay, but just to give you some perspective, the band was together as a band from 2002 to 2008. Now, come 2008, they kind of just after, and this is after so they really got 2 albums in their catalog. Now, I will tell you, those 2 albums, probably I love the debut album the best. I think it was a much better album. The songs were better. I like some of the stuff on the second album, but even when you say the name Velvet Revolver, that's kind of an album everybody points to. It's kind of interesting because when it first came out, it peaked at number 1, the debut album. Probably the big song you probably have heard at least several times on the radio is Fall to Pieces, was the big ballad from the album. It's like one of those great 80 power ballads, and Scott Weiland, he wrote about, I guess, his battle with addiction and how he struggled with it. It was a fun little video they put out, but that's probably the biggest song that I think peaked at number 1, and then the first single off the album, Sliver, that peaked at number 1. Now what's interesting is I was reading the Contraband, like I said, it peaked on the U.S. charts at number 1. Fall to Pieces was nominated for a Grammy in 2005. It didn't win, but the album won for Best Rock Album in 2005, and so that's and then Slither won for Best Hard Rock Performance. So so they got a Grammy for albums. So that's pretty cool for your debut album.
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. I mean you got heavy hitters like that. Those guys come from big time bands and great musicians, and
machine together, and it absolutely worked.
And also, let's see, March 12th, 2007, I was reading that Velvet Revolver played when, and they kind of introduced Van Halen when Van Halen was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I don't know if you remember anything about when Van Halen was inducted, but the only ones to show up from Van Halen to the induction was Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony. And none of the other guys showed, and so they had Velvet Revolver kind of introduce the Van Halen guys, and they did a performance, and they performed "Ain't Talking About Love" and "Run Around," which was a Sammy Hagar Van Halen song. And so I thought, for a band that wasn't around all that long, they have a few of these little things that are kind of really noteworthy and interesting. And what's really interesting was when I was reading up on Velvet Revolver, they kind of right as the band is, they've released their second album in 2008 and touring behind it, and then all of a sudden, the lead singer Scott Weiland, the band, he starts becoming kind of like a diva. This is years before he dies, but where he's taken like his own tour bus. He's not hanging out with any of the other guys. He when they're like in New York doing press or something, he rents a limousine and he wants to charge it to the band. And they're telling him, like, no, you can't do that, dude. That you want to rent a limousine, that comes out of your own pocket, And that is when the band was starting to slowly but surely fall apart.
Right. Well, the guy was out of his mind doing heroin.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, what did they expect?
Yeah, and what's funny is if you later get a chance to watch any of that clip I sent you, Joe, is Duff and Slash and Matt, they had that GNR connection all those years of playing together in Guns N' Roses, and they're saying, their singer Scott Weiland, he's starting to do a lot of the same moves that Axl Rose was doing in Guns N' Roses, showing up late, not showing up sometimes at all, not even apologizing for being late and stuff, and they were all sitting around like, man, we went through this before, and they were trying to be understanding because they knew what the guy was, dealing with his addiction. They're like, we've all been through it. They tried to kind of be a little accepting of it and try to be understanding, but it got to the point they said where, like he was late for a performance, and at the, after that they just decide, you know what, he's out of here, he's fired.
Yeah, can't blame him.
Yeah, and what's also interesting, so the band kind of fell just as quickly as it came together, and it's very sad because when you think of the potential, even if you're not a Scott Weiland fan, if you listen to some of the songs, especially on that debut album, and you just think of how cool Matt and Duff and Slash are back together, and the potential that was in the band, and even after they fired him, I remember originally they were considering to try to find another singer. It never happened for one, but one guy I understand that they were seriously considering was Corey Taylor from Slipknot. What do you think about that, Joe? Could you imagine Velvet Revolver with Corey Taylor?
No.
Yeah, it would have been a lot heavier, maybe. And
I think it would have been cool to see Velvet Revolver with Eric Dover or John Corabi.
Wow. Yeah, and what's kind of funny is, I agree, John Corabi. I was even thinking that. I remember when they fired Scott, I thought, John Corabi could pretty much, he could fit in any band. I think that he was to audition for, and now
he'd be good with Velvet Revolver.
Yeah, I could have seen that, and it's a shame that didn't even happen. But talking about John Corabi, because you and me were talking about him in our Motley Crue episode we did last week, Joe, and what a huge talent he is, and kind of like we were talking about Eric Dover, John Corabi at one point in his career, after he left Motley Crue, there were a couple of years where he actually played in Rat, but he just as a rhythm guitarist. And again, I was saying to myself as a huge Corabi fan, man, he's a great guitar player, and I understand he might need a gig in that to help pay his bills. But man, what a waste with a voice like that. Or I even thought Rat. John Corabi's such a cool singer. Why not have two lead singers? But I guess you're not gonna. Most guys don't have. When you've been the lead singer for a band's entire career, like Stephen Pearcy has, that's your band. You're not going to give up that.
Right.
You know, so that does kind of, you can't understand that, but I just thought, wow. And so even when John Corabi got like with the Dead Daisies finally, I'm like, okay, man, he's back up in front where he belongs.
Right.
Yeah, and so Velvet Revolver, like, I just think it's an interesting story because there was so much potential there, and the band's now been apart like longer than they were ever together. I mean, they have, and then I guess they played a final performance. They got together one more time with Scott Weiland, like in 2012 for a one night show. It was like, again, a benefit show that they were doing for a friend of theirs that they all had in common. That was some guy that worked behind the scenes in the music industry, and for one night they did this benefit show, and even then there started to be some rumblings about, oh, there's going to be a Velvet Revolver reunion. And I guess Scott Weiland was kind of out there spreading the rumor, and the rest of the guys like Slash saying, I haven't heard anything about this, and he's like, you know, we're kind of taking this, you know, we haven't worked the guy in like 4 years, and yeah, it was a good show, you know, the other night when we all got together, but we're really not feeling. We're kind of apprehensive about working with him again the way it ended. So, you know, we will see. And then finally, 2015, you know, Scott Weiland, he just finally succumbs to his, you know, addiction, and he's been dead ever since then. And you know, I don't know, like, and then they said part of
usually once you die, you stay that way.
Yeah. I mean, there's no coming back. That is so true. Now, what's interesting is his other band, Stone Temple Pilots. They have carried on since with a couple new singers. You know, so you know, that's kind of interesting. But just kind of another tragic loss, another wasted life to heroin. And I know you're not a huge fan, Joe. So I just thought though, they deserve a little bit of a mention because, like I said.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, that's what made me cringe. I don't like the guy's voice or vocal style, you know. But a lot of people disagree.
Well,
you know,
yeah.
They sold a lot more albums than I did. So
Yeah.
you know, they're absolutely talented. I won't take that away from any of them.
Yeah.
Scott also, you know. But the band especially, I mean, those guys are great rock musicians. Slash and Duff and Matt, and you know, anything that those guys were to get together and do, I'm sure would be good.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because talking about the Guns N' Roses connection again, since all of this has happened, you know, Slash has been a huge success as a solo artist, and as I was telling you, what's interesting is Miles Kennedy, who's now the singer in his band, he's one of the guys who originally auditioned for Velvet Revolver, and from what I understand, when Slash decided to put together a solo band, he had actually not only thought about Miles for Velvet Revolver again when Scott was fired, but when he put together a solo band, he thought, you know, that guy, you know, Miles Kennedy auditioned for Velvet Revolver, I think he'd be good for my band. So if it was not for Velvet Revolver, who knows who would be singing for Slash now?
It never would have been made.
Yeah, and then.
Right.
And then also,
the right place at the right time. So
yeah.
It says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then also Todd Kearns, who I don't know if you know who he is, but he's kind of an interesting cat, and he's got this new kind of video podcast he does. It's called Todd Dammit Kearns. You can look it up, or I'll send you a link later to check it out. It's pretty cool, but he's a huge talented cat too. He's a great lead singer. He can play guitar, he can play bass, he can do it all. And I heard him doing an interview recently, and he was telling somebody, you know, I play bass in Slash's band, and he goes, that's not really a bad gig. He says, but you know what? He goes, I can play guitar, I can play bass. He said when, you know, I went to audition for Slash, he needed a guitar player and a bass player, but I thought, you know what? I think I'll audition for the bass part because Slash is always going to need a bass player. You know, who's going to want to get up on stage and, you know, play guitar next to Slash? He's always going to be the main star, and he might not need a second guitar player all the time, you know?
Right.
So that's pretty.
Speaking of John, I want to just mention this on the show real quick.
Sure.
John Corabi reissued the Scream, Let It Scream on vinyl, limited to 300 copies worldwide.
Uh-huh.
If you go to lindsleyrecords.com. That's LINDSLEY records.com.
Wow.
Get your copy while they last. They originally pushed the first 300, and John said they sold in 4 hours.
Yeah,
So the label increased it to 500 copies because they sold out so quick.
I'm assuming you ordered yours, right, Joe?
Oh, I'm definitely. Yeah.
And do you have a turntable?
I'm a huge fan of the screen.
Yeah. Do you have a turntable, or like a lot of us, you just collect it?
I've got one of the old-fashioned record players. Absolutely.
Oh, how cool is that? A lot of people, when vinyl went out, they threw their old record players together, and you can find, you can get a turntable still, but it's not as easy to find them as it once was, and so if you still got a turntable, you're lucky.
No, that makes me old.
Well, it makes you old that you even know what a record player is, Yeah, I was talking the other day, Joe. I don't know if you're much of a Doors fan, about the fact that the Doors released their L.A. Woman album 50 years ago now, and it just makes you feel old that you're into music that is that old,
Right.
But yeah.
I'm not a Doors fan either. Pretty much for the same reason. I think Jim Morrison was an overrated drunk.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of...
There it is, folks.
Yeah,
the raw, ugly truth.
I mean, it is. I mean, but it's amazing that some of the musicians, legendary musicians like that. I mean, there's some truth to what you say, Joe, and yet they left such a huge legacy. But I mean, when you consider Jim Morrison, that he's been dead now for 50 years, and when you consider he died at 27, and there's all this music that so many people around the world still love and listen to, that gets played on the radio 50 years after the guy's been gone. I mean, he's been gone longer.
All I got to say is he's lucky he had the talented musicians that he had in that band.
Oh yeah. But yeah, and it's interesting because since Velvet Revolver, Slash is probably he's had a huge solo career like we've been talking about, but him and Duff are now back in Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, Duff put out a solo record too, didn't he?
Yeah, he's put out quite a few, and then he had his band Loaded, which was kind of like a punk band, where he did all the lead vocals and stuff, and he was a front man for that. But yeah, and see that's the thing is, Duff is a pretty good. Duff's got a huge talent in his own right, because I mean, he may not be out there as much as like Slash, but if you listen to any of his soul records, it's kind of got a punk attitude, but it's great stuff. And if you listen to, I mean, he's a great singer too. That's what a lot of people don't know. Hugely talented. I mean, that's why on those.
On the music spectrum, he writes some really tasty bass lines. He's actually a really good bass player.
Oh yeah, he can do it all. I mean, I remember one of his very first solo albums he put out. It was called "Believe in Me," and I think it came out like in '93 or something like that.
Yeah, I think I remember that. That's what I remembered him doing solo.
And he was doing lead vocals and everything. And I think he played more than one instrument. I mean, he was originally also a drummer, which is kind of interesting. And so, I mean, he's a huge talented cat. And even if you go back to the Use Your Illusions album, there's a few songs on there where Axl's still singing on most of the stuff, but Duff sings on a couple of the tunes, lead, and so does Izzy. I think he sings on the song "So Fine," which is on Use Your Illusions 2. So that's kind of interesting about him. And so him and Duff went back to Guns N' Roses first, and now Slash is back. And what's kind of interesting is they got some new guys in the band now, but they got kind of 3 of the classic members that you want to see. And there's a point when Axl Rose was kind of like, I'll never play with Slash again. He's like a cancer to me. But I'm glad he kind of ate those words. And now we'll just see if we ever. Supposedly we're going to get a new Guns N' Roses album with this lineup with Slash and Duff back in the band. So I sure do hope to see at least one new Guns N' Roses album before I die. But we'll see.
Yeah. Who knows with that?
See, that's what's sad is like Axl Rose. He's a super talented guy. I mean, he can sing, he can play the piano, he's a great songwriter, But I mean, from what I've heard over the years, just people that know him, he is one of these crazy musical genius. He's like he's really like a perfectionist. He like Chinese Democracy. I mean, worked on that for 14 years before he even released it. Just because he wanted to get every nuance and every little bit sound just so and just perfect. But at some point, you gotta quit being a perfectionist. Say, okay, well, I think it's time to give my fans some new music.
Yeah, I'm sure there was more to it than just that, but
yeah. Well,
I've heard the same thing, that he's difficult to work with in a number of ways.
Well, I mean, even so much to the point. I mean, going back to 1987 when they came out with Appetite for Destruction. I mean, that was much more of a band effort. I mean, part of the reason that all the original guys left one by one. I mean, Steven Adler, the original drummer, he got fired because he was really heavy into his drug addiction and it was affecting his playing and when they do live shows. So he was let go, but one by one, like Slash and Duff, and even Matt Sorum, once he was in the band, they all left one by one because they could not get along with Axl Rose. And eventually, before all of them left, like Duff and Slash, he made them all sign away their rights, to the band where he ends up getting like the bulk of the money. And that's at that point when one guy's getting more money than everybody else, I mean, it's like, what am I even doing this for?
Right, yeah.
And I guess to wrap this up for tonight, Joe, the other thing about Velvet Revolver, as far as right around 2008, as the band is starting to fall apart, I was reading that Scott Weiland, like when they went to do their second album, on the first, because like Slash and Duff wrote most of the album, because a lot of the stuff was written before Scott Weiland was in the band, and once he joined, he wrote a lot of the lyrics. But on the second album, he was kind of demanding to the other guys. And you got to remember, like I said, the other guys started the band together. He came and auditioned, so he's joining these other guys' band. And then by the second album, he starts making these demands like he doesn't want anybody co-writing with him. He wants to write all the lyrics, and then he started demanding that he get a bigger piece of the publishing, and they're like, you gotta be kidding me, where like in the first album they're splitting the publishing with everybody that's in the band, which is kind of a fair-minded way to do it. And I'm like, what? And then when I'm reading this, I'm like, man, you joined these guys' band, and now you're demanding that you get like 100% of the publishing? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Again, that's probably something to do with supporting his habit,
Oh yeah.
Because that stuff isn't cheap.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was curious, Joe. Are you much of a Rat fan? Of the band Rat?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I loved Rat. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to do an episode on them one day. But Robin, I'm sure you've heard the story about the original guitar player, Robin Crosby, how he became hooked on heroin too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, what a tragic story that was. I mean, he helped write a lot of those great hits, and the last time I ever seen him do an interview was, I think, for VH1, and one of the lines he said in the interview was like so prophetic. He's like, he at that point he was infected with HIV. He knew he was dying, and he told this interviewer, my funeral, when I die, I don't want anybody to cry for me. I've lived a life of 10 men. I've lived all my dreams, so I've had it better than some people. But he was a perfect example of a guy that had it all, lived all his dreams, and then by the time he gets infected with HIV, he knows he's dying. He struggles the rest of his life. At one point he's almost homeless. He's lost all his money, and it's just so he's kind of seen the rise and the fall of he's had the best of both worlds, so to speak. But could you imagine? It's just so sad. Heroin kind of it takes, these guys get addicted to it, and it just takes control of their lives.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Yeah, and so let me ask you, Joe.
A lot of other people around him is the worst part.
And let me ask you, Joe. Yeah, before we wrap this up tonight, I know you're a lead singer, like in Scream Kings. You have been for several years now. And you shared with me not long ago that you and your band are pretty tight. That you don't have a lot of this drama going on in your band. What's been the secret for you guys having a great chemistry between you and your other guys in your band?
Well, honestly, with Scream King, it started with me and Raphael, and we wrote together, and we worked together really well, and that's really the secret. Him and I work together really good, and we compromise. We get a goal in mind, we work towards it, and we put something together and go try and make it happen.
Oh yeah.
Album after album. Now here we are, the third album later.
Oh wow. And so last time we talked, you're telling me that you're probably a new album's going to drop in a couple months. Have you guys come up with a release date yet, or are you still working on that?
No, we're still working on it. His work schedule is really hectic right now, and so we don't get to work on it as much as we'd like. But we're getting close. We wrapped up most of the liner notes and the artwork and layout and all of that last Sunday, so it won't be long. I'm hoping for an April, maybe May release date.
Yeah, and so Joe, like, how is it around where you live? Like all this COVID stuff and the lockdowns, are places starting to open up, or is it kind of like it is here in California, where a lot of things are still locked down?
No, it's not like California, thank God.
Yeah, thank God for that.
Illinois, which is right next door to me, though, is pretty much is a basket case over there. But I mean, there's bars and stuff that are open to limited capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Bands are playing a little bit here and there, not a whole lot. You don't see a whole heck of a lot going on like you used to.
Yeah.
But it is coming back around. Our state recently loosened up the regulations even more with COVID for the state of Indiana. So things are pretty much normal here. I mean, you go to a bar and you can see the parking lot's packed.
Oh wow!
It's, you go to the store. I mean, it's not as big of an issue here. If you want to get rid of COVID, all you got to do is turn off the TV.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Turn off the news, man. That's it. Problem solved.
I mean, not to get political here, but I totally agree with you. I mean, I have a friend that, I mean, even in his house, like, he wears 3 masks because he believes everything he sees. I tell him, man, when I'm at home, I don't wear a mask. I'm just around my family, people I live with, and when I go out, I put a mask on. I respect all that, but when I'm driving in my car, I don't have a mask on because it's just me in the car. But I kind of, and I haven't got it, so I think if you kind of follow some of the simple rules, okay, you can be a little, I mean, you may get it, but I haven't got it. A lot of people I know haven't got it, so it's just, I think, just being careful, like anything, But the reason I was asking you all that is, have you guys looked at, like, possibly doing like some more live shows, or what's your plans as far as that? Wait till everything gets more normal?
Yeah, we're going to wait on that, Hopefully we'll be able to go out and start playing some shows in the summertime, but, it's really difficult for bands to plan anything because you just don't know what's going to happen with this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when this first started, they said, we're going to
a couple of weeks. Yeah.
And flatten the curve. You remember that?
Yeah.
That was the lingo, man. And here we are a year and a half later, and it's like Nazi Germany still.
Yeah, I mean, I think the true crime of it all is like shutting these kids, keep these kids out of school. I mean, a lot of them are just forgetting everything they've learned, and naturally so, and you're not around your friends, and you don't get to see people, and you locked up. Like, a lot of kids are like wanting to kill themselves, and some of them have, and just very tragic thing now.
Yeah, a lot of tragedy in our country right now
because of all this control these politicians want to have over our lives. But Joe, the reason I was asking about playing live again is because of the current situation. I was kind of curious. This is probably the longest you've gone without playing live, right?
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, but it's kind of weird too.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that first show you guys do, that's going to be really, really like the comeback show. I mean, as far as I miss this. This is what it's like to get out here.
Well, I mean, hopefully there'll still be some bars and clubs open.
Oh yeah.
With all of these draconian lockdowns and stuff, businesses can't keep their doors open.
Yeah.
Every day I'm finding out about clubs closing or clubs GoFundMe pages because they're trying desperately to keep their doors open. I mean,
Yeah.
this has ruined so many people's lives. It's not even funny.
Oh yeah, I mean,
COVID has ruined more people's lives.
Yeah, and
with the lockdowns
yeah.
than it has the virus.
Oh yeah,
by far.
Totally agree.
By far.
I mean, even
the entertainment industry is ruined. It's gone.
I mean, even this club down the street from where I live, it was pretty cool because when you're still able to go to have outdoor dining, we're finally able to do that again. But at one point, it was getting to a point can't even go to a movie theater here and see a movie. And like this little club, they got this bright idea. We're gonna have we can have the bands play like inside the club, and we'll set like seats up for people.
Yeah.
Have a big movie screen.
You can have thousands of people come flood the borders, and that's no problem for COVID.
Oh yeah,
you can't go watch a movie in the state of California.
Yeah, I mean
it doesn't make any sense. It's just so asinine and it's unbelievable that people believe this shit.
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest joke of all of that is okay, I could see if you're going to do that, at least make people like take a COVID test, and the ones that pass, great, they get in. The ones that don't, they have to stay behind. But I mean, stupid shit like that, it just did not make sense. And
right.
And what I was saying about this club down the street, that they were at least getting decent business for a while because they were able to have like concerts and people could sit outside watch it on big movie screen, and they were actually having movie nights too. Like I went to see like this one movie night they were having in the parking lot. I mean, it wasn't even a drive-in; just had a big movie screen. They had where you order food there, to watch the movie. You sit down at a table, and it was a cool thing to do. Like I went to see, I think, what was it, Caddyshack and Fast Times at Ridgemont. These are movies I'd seen, of course, years ago, but nothing else is showing. I said, just to get out of the house, I'm going to go see this. It was a cool event, and then the stupid governor here decided we're going to shut all that down. And the place found a way to make some money. The minute they do that, they want to shut them down. And it's just a shame, but I'll tell you what, I'm glad the governor here is going to be recalled. He deserves it,
Yeah. Hopefully they can get life back to normal, not just in California, but
everywhere.
In all of these states that are struggling, and all these people's livelihoods that have been flushed down the toilet, literally.
Oh yeah, even Disneyland.
How many people have lost their homes and then now are homeless and stuff that you just don't even hear about?
Yeah,
things like that. They don't report the numbers. The news media don't give a shit about those people. They don't get reported. So I don't get too sensitive about all of these people. Yeah, it's sad that these people are getting COVID and they're dying, and it's a horrible death and everything. I mean, so was the flu. I mean, so was pneumonia. So was a lot of things. But if it was about saving lives, this is my one big argument right here too. If it was ever truly about saving people's lives, then why the fuck can you go to any gas station or any store, convenience store, grocery store, anywhere in America, and buy a pack of cigarettes? And when you put that cigarette in your mouth and you light it, over 2,000 toxins and chemicals enter your body, and all of them are carcinogen, causing cancer. That's okay, and they know that. They've proven it. They know it. It's not maybe it gives you cancer. It for sure fucking kills you.
Oh, yeah.
And
I hear you.
You can go do that anywhere, in any state, in any town in America, any time of day or night. You can go buy a pack of cigarettes and light up.
I hear you, Joe.
I hear you. If it was ever about saving lives, we would have done away with that a long time ago. Because I'll tell you what, that's killed millions of people.
Yeah.
Not thousands of people, millions.
Yeah,
and we don't do shit about it.
Oh, you're so dead on, Joe. And I'll tell you another thing, Joe. Like, let me give you another example here in California where I'm living. They've become so relaxed. I mean, you would be amazed. I see this on the news every night. You could walk past a police officer. A guy could be walk past a police officer on the streets of L.A., shoot himself, full of heroin, right in front of the cop, won't get arrested. The stupid politicians there are like, we shouldn't arrest people for shooting up on the streets of L.A. They can't help it if they're addicted. At one point, they were giving these, I'm sorry, but they giving these drug addicts like needles for free. You could go and get a needle to shoot yourself up, and then they were finding needles like on playgrounds and on buses and on the streets of L.A. Dirty needles.
Great job! What a way to run your city or your state.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean it's just It's just ridiculous.
They should have hung that guy up by his ball sack a long time ago.
Yeah, and we got kind of off topic here, Joe, but just for a laugh, another funny story having nothing to do with music that I was hearing a lot about this week was just to kind of lighten the mood. It's kind of hysterical. Disney, who now owns the Muppets, okay, they're playing old episodes of a Muppet Show from years ago on their Disney streaming service. Disney is putting a warning out that Kermit the Frog and his friends are racist. So you gotta be careful before you watch the Muppets because and they're even going to the crazy point of
there's no end. This cancel culture is doing more harm than they are good to anything. And the sad thing, but it's kind of comical to me, is, I think years from now, hopefully people are going to get a little bit more intelligent and stop believing all the bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully that's going to come back in fashion again.
Oh, yeah.
Common sense, things like that. And they're going to look back at this era and say, what the fuck were they thinking?
Oh, yeah. I mean, another, just kind of to end this part of the show, another thing I heard about this week, just kind of same type of crazy stuff. And I can't believe some of these companies are calling themselves out, like Hasbro, which is a toy company. They've been making like Mr. Potato Head for years. Okay, well they decided this week they want to be more inclusive, so they're never gonna call it Mr. or Mrs. Potato Head again. They want to create a new Potato Head where it could be whatever you want. And I'm all for inclusion. And I mean, like, if somebody's born a man and they want to be referred to as a woman, they dress as a woman, that's their choice. Okay, I'll refer you to as Mrs. or whatever. But I don't think everybody else has to change the way they talk. Like I mean, even these people in Congress, like
nobody should have to cater to your misguided ideologies. Here's how it is. It's real simple.
Yeah.
You look down between your legs when you're born, and if you got a pecker, you're a man. And if you don't, you're a woman. And just because you cut your pecker off doesn't make you a woman. It makes you a man who cut his pecker off. That's
yeah. And even Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, she made this new rule that you cannot refer to anybody as a gentleman or a gentlewoman. It has to be a gentle person. But getting back to Mr.
Blow it out your ass, Nancy.
Yeah. But getting back to getting back to Mr. Potato Head, they received such backlash for saying we're not going to call him Mr. Potato Head anymore. But they finally decide, okay, we're going to still create a new Mr. Potato Head, but we discovered people want us to call it Mr. Potato Head because that's what it's been all these years. And I thought, okay, even though you're doing it because you received a lot of backlash, how cool is it not to be forced to do something because of the PC crowd?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, well, Joe, we've been all over the place today, which made this kind of a fun show. We were originally just going to talk about Velvet Revolver, but that's what I love about talking with you, Joe, because there's just so much.
Where it goes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's what this is all about, because we have, I think, the more people here.
That's the identity of metal, man. It goes where it goes.
Yeah, and that's what that's what I laugh about when I hear some of these like aging rockers want to virtue signal and stuff. I mean, Sebastian Bach, who we talked a lot about, we even did an episode on him. I've been reading all this crap about that he says and does. He wants to be an elite. Okay, he wants to be accepted by all these people that used to be trying to get his records banned and talk crap about him. And now, like he said something.
Take the money.
Yeah, he says something crazy the other day about, how they say they want to give all the elderly people the vaccine first, which I'm in favor of. That's a cool thing. He says that he's an elderly person because he's 50 years old. I'm like, and he wants to cut in line like, oh, come on now.
Right.
Or
get back to Canada.
Yeah, or even like Dee Snider. I mean, Dee Snider, what appealed to me about Dee like years ago, he was one of these guys. He was the anti-establishment, and now he wants to be with all these elites.
Now he's right in sync with them.
Yeah, and I was even commenting on somebody's blog the other day about, he wants to be friends with the very people that were trying to ban his records years ago. Just think about that. and it doesn't even have to be that you're woke, or I don't really care what somebody's like. Ted Nugent, I love Ted Nugent, not just for his music, but people think, oh, he's crazy, he's political, and he says crazy things. Yeah, but you know what I love about that? He is true to who he is. And Tommy Lee came out. Tommy Lee came out recently making a comment about the Senator Ted Cruz, and somebody was saying, and Ted Nugent made a comment. Oh, who is he to criticize? He's a drug addict. He's a wife beater. What do we care what he thinks? You know.
Right.
But yeah, and so it's just kind of crazy when entertainment crosses over into politics. But I guess everybody has an opinion, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and so so Joe, I guess final question for you, because I like to get a little more into what you do too. So when you guys like your band and that, like we were talking earlier about the chemistry and stuff between you. I mean, have you ever had anybody in any of the bands you've been on over years that was struggling with like drug addiction or anything, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, all of the time. That would be a whole other episode.
Wow.
But yeah, that's sadly I have been in that situation.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that some other time, Joe. But I know it's getting late where you are, so I'm going to let you go. And thanks for doing this again, brother. I'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it again. Take care, brother.
Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.